if we take our oath, our Hippocratic oath seriously of do no harm, I think that means do no financial harm. And if families could save $1,000 a month on their health insurance, that would be really life-changing in a lot of ways for them.
Try to fix the current system or reimagine something new? Will healthcare ever serve consumers just like me and you? The power's in our hands, but every side's gotta come together. We want the newer generations to get something better. Until we flip the script and talk about what gets prevented. Until we see the changes permanent as if we meant it. Until healthcare is finally consumer-centered. We've got a lot to rap about.
Welcome back to the leading podcast about consumer-centered health. This is more than a show. This is a mission, y'all. As healthcare leaders, we're here to share with you the latest consumer-centered ways that healthcare is being designed, marketed, and delivered. And as consumers yourselves, we want you to understand how these options work and why they might be right for you and your loved ones. Here's what's going down today. First up, we have the Flava of the Week about Nourish offering free lab work. What's behind them now integrating lab work into their digital nutrition service? And is this a signal of where preventive care is headed? I'll talk about that. Then Dr. Josh Umbehr, founder of Atlas.MD, shares the financial benefits of direct primary care to both patients and providers, how Atlas's insurance product works, and why he believes healthcare should be too inexpensive to insure in the first place. I'm Jared Johnson. Let's get it. Flava of the Week. I'm intrigued by one of the latest preventive care services to offer lab work and what it might mean as consumers continue to look for answers anywhere they can find them. Nourish, a virtual nutrition provider, recently announced a program that gives patients access to free cardiometabolic lab testing to better inform personalized nutrition care. According to Fierce Healthcare, Nourish labs will integrate blood testing into personalized nutrition care. The free basic panel will include key cardiometabolic markers like cholesterol, A1C, and thyroid stimulating hormone, or TSH. An enhanced lab panel for insights into heart and hormone health will be available for a small add-on cost. The basic panel, which Nourish will cover the cost of for members, will suffice for most people. Patients will be able to get blood work through Nutrition's local lab partners, including Quest, LabCorp, and BioReference. They will have access to their results through the Nourish app, which will feature an AI-powered summary to help understand biomarkers and interpret their results. They can then further review the results with their Nourish dietitian. Patients can also track improvements over time with regular labs, which creates a feedback loop that empowers and engages patients and care teams. What's the consumer lens? This is an interesting signal that could potentially indicate a direction where the next wave of consumer health is headed. Without trying to extrapolate too far, at least one nutrition provider sees the value of pairing their service with lab testing insights to truly personalize their offering, which is interesting because for years, digital nutrition has lived somewhere between wellness and medicine. So by incorporating lab testing, Nourish is moving nutrition further into the realm of evidence-based, biomarker-driven care. This could include markers related to metabolic health, micronutrient levels, inflammation, lipids, or glucose, depending on the panel design. That shift matters for three reasons. It increases credibility, it strengthens payer conversations, and it elevates the role of the dietitian. And in a world where GLP-1s are reshaping metabolic care, employers are desperate for cost control, and consumers are increasingly biomarker curious, this move feels strategically timed. And that's great because fewer things are more preventive than fixing what we eat in a way that actually leads to behavior change. Let's watch closely for more signals of digital nutrition pairing up with lab work to continue to blur the line between wellness and medicine. That's another way that we'll build the healthcare of tomorrow. And that's the Flava of the Week. Hey, I'm here with my friend Carol Flagg from Healthcare Now Radio. Carol, you and I have an exciting new partnership that we want to tell people about.
Yep, we'll actually be launching an exclusive new opportunity called Limited Series. And these series will air nationally on Healthcare Now Radio, which, by the way, was named once again as one of the top 10 healthcare shows again in 2025, as well as here on the Healthcare Now Wrap. These series are going to cover some of the biggest topics in 2026, starting with rural health and including the CMS health tech ecosystem, GLP-1s, wearables, and more. So we're really excited about these series because there's a lot to talk about with these topics, which means they are ideal opportunities to create thought leaders in these spaces.
Yeah, Carol, that's what I'm the most excited about, is to really generate more informed, trusted information on these topics. And for those who are interested, spots are extremely limited for Q2 through Q4 of 2026. To get started, just reach out to either of us on LinkedIn, and we look forward to hearing from you.
flow, the flow, the flow.
All right, everyone, let's get into the flow. I'm here with Dr. Josh Umbehr, the founder of Atlas.MD. He is a direct primary care physician, and that means this is one of my favorite topics. I always come back to this. Things always come back to this very innovative, consumer-centered version of primary care. Always worth talking more about. So without further ado, Josh, welcome to Healthcare Wrap.
Yeah, thank you for having us on. It's our favorite topic too. So
I think when we were just talking off camera in our prep here for a moment, it's just worth mentioning those who have experienced it themselves do have a different feeling about it. I've rarely come across other types of healthcare that patients or members or users of enjoy it the more they use it. Like, that's just not common, but that is definitely the case with me. That's the case with a lot of patients who have, in my opinion, the fortune, the opportunity to go with a primary care doc in this field. So let me give you a little bit of chance to introduce yourself as far as who you are, what you do, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, so I'm a family doc in Wichita, Kansas. I've been dreaming about a direct care model in some fashion since undergrad in 2000. Went through undergrad, med school, residency, launched our practice 2 months after finishing residency back in 2010 when no one knew what this was, and just kind of figured it out. It made a lot of mistakes, but learned a lot along the way. Eventually, that rolled into building our own software platform for direct care doctors, a consulting platform. We've been involved with politics, and now we've even launched a health insurance company for patients of direct care practices, which seems counterintuitive, and it is, but no, it's passion and purpose. It's a lot of fun to be involved in this space.
A couple places I'll come back to on that journey then, but one of them is worth just kind of recapping where that leads you and your point of view about where just the 10,000 foot view of direct primary care is. Every time I've ever checked over the years, the number of clinics are growing, the number of patients within a direct primary care relationship, that number's growing. But there's a broader transformation conversation happening outside of that, which is, I believe, just primary care altogether, but primary care in particular, and what those relationships look like. Wherever you want to start with that, I'd love to hear just kind of where you're coming from on any of those aspects in terms of like the overall growth of the field.
I'm guilty of saying we're always like a couple of years away from breaking free and really changing the industry. I know there's a physics joke, like we're always 20 years away from cold fusion or something, but I kind of believe it now. 2026 is the most expensive year in the history of healthcare by a wide margin, and then 2027 will beat that. So we have 15 plus years of direct care growing and evolving and becoming popular and maturing, right along with the growth of health insurance. And you kind of don't beat the system, you let the system beat itself. And people know they want a better product, faster, easier, cheaper. But I think we suffer from this communal mentality that healthcare is so complex, it can't be fixed. People have promised us fixes all along, and it's never really materialized. And so there's just a low expectation that it can be done better until they experience direct care. And I think we're very primed for the opportunity for direct care to take off, because the goal, 10,000 foot view, should be to make most healthcare too cheap to insure. And I think that's what direct care does. And lots of smart people miss that. One of our good friends, Sean Flynn, is an economist. He wrote a book, The Cure That Works. And this is probably back 2015. So can't fault him per se for not picking up on direct care. But he talked that 75% of the healthcare system could probably be decreased in terms of the cost, just from efficiency and wholesale and whatnot. But then another book by an MIT genius economist, Amy Finkelstein, We've Got You Covered. They don't appreciate that direct care or primary care can affect the cost of the system, because everyone focuses on these big ticket items of cancer, surgery, hospitalizations, and they're expensive but relatively rare. Direct care has this incredible ability to extend what most people think of as primary care, but into pharmacy and lab and pathology and radiology and ER and urgent care. And we can't really decrease the cost of what we insure until we decrease the cost of care. I think most people have been putting the cart before the horse. Insurance is the secondary model. When metformin is 1.3 cents per pill, wholesale, you just don't need to insure it. And that's a weird mental model for problem solving, is that first principles or inverse thinking of, we keep just asking, well, people with great insurance pay doctors more and doctors like being paid more, so that must work. But we just that's a sledgehammer when we need a scalpel. To get back to direct care, having this unprecedented ability to shrink the cost of most care and then fix whatever's left over. I think that's very exciting. It's bleeding into direct specialty care, and vendors are preferentially working with the system and getting this renewed focus on how malleable the system is when you try to do it differently.
Yeah, that's definitely a paradigm shift of what don't we need to insure. I mean, when you talk about the consumer's journey, the patient's journey, and in some cases it makes sense to interchange those terms. In some cases it's more thought of as like those day-to-day health and wellness choices that we're making. So many of them do start with, what's covered for me. And when I've had employment that, my health insurance was only tied to my employment, I just fell into that trap a lot. I would fall into that line of thinking of all my choices start and end there. And when I've been self-employed and that's not an option, it's actually quite liberating. It's not fun to figure out the details of everything, but it's liberating to know my choices aren't tied to that only, like that little scope of what's available to me. And so I'm fascinated by that whole line of thinking of just how much that kind of turns the whole decision process for so many like low-hanging fruit, like those more common healthcare encounters.
Oh, yeah. It's so interesting. I kind of joke it's partly schizophrenic, right? And I think any good entrepreneur is, to a degree, that you have to hear and see and believe something that most don't. And for, most people, their entire life, most doctors, right? And if people don't understand healthcare, they're going to ask their doctor, and their doctors are under the same illusion, is that insurance was making things cheaper. But then you realize, usually because they're kind of forced into it. Like I didn't have insurance, and then I checked on the cash price of something and I was shocked how much better it was. And this emperor's new clothes mentality that insurance is the way to buy healthcare. And now, as we're seeing employers go up 27% increase in their premiums for 2026, they're being forced off of it. And so they've never been more ready to find out that there's a better way. But I always kind of joke, I thought the worst part about consumer-driven healthcare, when it was like a real popular term in the early 2000s, was the consumer, right? In the sense of, we don't say consumer-driven technology in that same way. I go to Best Buy. The best part about being a consumer is that everybody else does the work for you, right? I mean, Best Buy wants to show me how well something works. They want to show the price. They want to add on free installation. They want to match coupons from other vendors just to make sure I don't leave the store because it's so competitive. And then healthcare was sort of like, well, yeah, the consumer, if they do the legwork, that it's on them. But then we won't tell you what the price is either. No, I mean, it should be your doctor emailing you coupons for colonoscopies because they're so eager to get you preventative health. It should come to you. And I think that's the benefit of direct care, is the doctor can get deeper in the rabbit hole, has already shopped the meds and the labs. And well, what's that procedure cost? If it's in our office, it's free. And so we think, oh, well, that can be free, but not this. And because doctors don't tend to involve themselves in business, because we've sort of been fed this professional expectation or lie that it's a dirty and unprofessional of a physician to know about the money, but it's totally okay for admin. Like, well, that pushing that off didn't help the patient, right?
Right.
And in fact, I've got this blog post in a draft. Hippocrates himself talked about not talking about prices with patients because it was sort of uncouth in the moment, right? Take care of them first and worry about. And that's what direct care does, is it standardizes so much. Every visit is free, every text, every call, every email. There's no shock, there's no surprise. But Best Buy is doing that too. And Every Good launched a new place in Tennessee and had a 3-mile traffic jam. No one in healthcare has this cultish following that Costco or In-N-Out or Chick-fil-A or these other amazing brands have, because I think we don't try to show that radical level of transparency or price consistency or value stacking. And I think if we did, it would be a very exciting world for doctors and definitely benefit patients.
Well, I appreciate the realization it's not necessarily heresy to even compare these consumer brands to healthcare experiences anymore. There was a number of years ago that it might have been like, oh my gosh, like that's heretical thinking. It's wild.
Because I think it kept us from trying. And in a weird way, it kept us clean. Well, insurance is bad, admin admin's bad. We're doing our best because we can't play in that space. So we push ourselves away. And I always say, I blame doctors more than I blame insurance companies. If nothing else, we've blamed insurance and government, and that hasn't worked. If we blame ourselves, if we take on the responsibility of it, we also get responsibility of the solution. It's like, great, you're right, it sucks. And I'm not waiting for someone else to fix it. What can I fix for you today? Instead of, because I have this conversation with lots of docs, often online and whatnot. It's like, no, my meds are expensive. And more often than not, the wholesale price shocks even them, right? Pharmacists don't always know the wholesale price because they're an employee in a large system. So they don't need to know it. Or there's no way you can make an EKG 40 cents. Like, I didn't do that. That's just the cost of sticky pads, right? Like the coffee costs more than, but also if it's expensive, it adds this weird value to it, right? The social whip, wealth, income, power, and prestige. No one wants to go to the cheap med school. No one wants to buy the cheap engagement diamond. And so we just assume high price also adds high significance. And I think that's a flaw that trips up a lot of good innovation.
Just flipping the conversation on its head, I wonder if that's one reason that is still contributing to the adoption of direct primary care. What are you seeing either from the providers themselves or their patients and members as they're experiencing a growth, like an adoption of it at a higher rate? What's kind of contributing to it?
I think it's several things. I can't remember if it's Jeff Bezos or Peter Thiel. They asked a question like, what will change in the future of business? And they said, well, nobody can predict an Airbnb or a ChatGPT, but you can predict what won't change. And that the customer will always want it better, faster, cheaper, easier. And if you look at direct care through that lens, this is obvious. Patients actually get it, I think, quicker than doctors, because all they hear is the consumer side of it. Doctors get wrapped up in insurance contracts and HIPAA and government and what about and these expectations that ultimately end up not holding much water. So the biggest delay is kind of if you build it, they will come. Doctors get trapped in a model of high work, higher pay to some degree, but just volume. So by the time they spent seeing 30, 40 patients a day and then chart on them after hours, they just have no energy or time to look for new models. And they're terrified. Behavioral economics would teach us we overweight risk by 2.5 times, right? We're more afraid of losing $2.50 than we are of getting $1. So the doc's being so risk adverse saying, yeah, I know the job I have is horrible and I'm burning out, but what if I go to zero? And they kind of had to watch until there's that delta of, okay, when I came out, my attendings told me this will never work. And we launched, and 9 months later, we added Dr. Doug, my partner. And they're like, well, that's amazing, but it'll never work for more than 2 doctors. And then we had 3, and they said, well, it'll never be 2 locations. And we had 2 locations, and now we have 1,800 plus docs, 1,200 locations on our software platform, thousands of doctors system-wide. And it is growing. It's an inherent misunderstanding of how innovation works, because it took Starbucks 16 years to get their first 17 stores. So we sort of feel like if it's not everything all at once, it didn't work, but it is working. But the docs had to get so burnt out and say, well, this is direct care is a risk, and I don't want to go in that direction. But staying here is a risk too, right? Burnout and whatnot. And then as this got worse and direct care got better, we're very evidence-based people. Now it's easy. Now it's the last one to leave, turn out the lights. Staying in an insurance-based model is unsustainable, not just for the doctors, but the families won't be able to afford it either. I mean, this is the first year that we've seen when employers have had these double-digit increases in their premiums, not be able to pass that on or absorb that enough for the employees. So we're seeing as high as triple-digit increase relative to what the employee was used to paying. There's 2026 is one example, 179% increase in their out-of-pocket responsibility for no more care. So it's beating itself. And the adverse risk selection of those healthy people pulling off will make 2027 even worse. But that means more people without insurance asking for cash rates. That means insurance squeezing doctors even more to try to not have a massive premium hike next year. It means doctors having to see more patients for less money. The whole thing is, you would never, it's kind of like the argument for a standard gasoline-based engine versus a Tesla. You would never make really batteries are just amazing in this sense, a better torque, whatever. It'd be so hard to come from a cash-based system that's working really well, like grocery stores, and build out a system this complex and terrible. But it's also so hard, like it's in this weird way of Stockholm syndrome, like everyone, gets, oh yeah, healthcare's broken, it sucks. But then when you tell them it's 98% broken, that's a very much too good to be true. Like, okay, I don't want to get got. Right. I don't want to be fooled. I don't want to be tricked. There's no way it's that much cheaper. And then you show them on meds. Yeah, it really is. And what's free in healthcare? Stitches, biopsies, joint injections. We can make a lot free in the right business model. Free, prepaid for it. It's a membership model. But we did this in the 1920s. Before insurance, we had membership model medicine. And there's a whole book on that by The Social Basis of Medical Practice by Christy Ford Chapin. If you want a new idea, read an old book. All things come back around.
I like that. That's kind of the connection here with all of these ideas.
Yeah.
It's probably worth a quick refresher for those who haven't listened to our previous episodes when we have dived into direct primary care and kind of how it works. If you can walk us through the experience just at a high level and how it's different than care that's purely deductible, premium based.
We still have the same prices we had in 2010, which I take great pride in. A few things can say that. $10 a month for kids, $50, $75, or $100 a month for adults based on age. For unlimited home visits, work visits, office visits, free telemedicine, calling, texting, emailing, video chats, no copays for anything. In the same way Netflix doesn't have copays. And that's a great point on innovation. Blockbuster laughed Netflix out of their offices because they didn't have late fees. Blockbuster was making $800 million a year in late fees. But then a better business model comes and that's no longer necessary and the consumer wins. We don't need copays. Copays was always an insurance thing to get you as a speed bump to use less care and spend less of their money. So no, this is like a gym membership. We want you to use as much care as you can. But then any procedure we can do in the office is free of charge because the true cost of those procedures is so low, right? The EKG costs 40 cents in our office. It's free to the patient in the same way that the coffee in the waiting room is 80 cents a cup, but it's also free. If I'm not billing your insurance for that, but a standard model is a whack-a-mole. Well, you didn't pay me for that, so I'm going to get you to pay me over here. But it's nonsensical. And we keep trying to add value to that membership. Wholesale medicine labs. I like to joke there's not a billionaire alive who gets meds cheaper than my patients. We're 80% cheaper than Amazon, 70% cheaper than GoodRx, and 40% cheaper than Mark Cuban's Cost Plus. And they're all trying. They're just not trying very well. And same with labs. Most labs should be dollars a test. $2.50 to check if you're diabetic, $2.75 to check your thyroid, $3 to check your cholesterol, and as low as a penny a pill to treat your cholesterol. An expensive medicine for cholesterol for us is Crestor at 8 cents a pill, but that's at the max dose, right? That's silly. You don't need to insure that. But even bigger things, we've gotten brain tumor medicines for patients that they were going to be billed $26,000 for that we could get wholesale for $1,200. Now, as a family doc, I don't treat a lot of brain cancer, but I can help the patient find the best source of the medicine, right? From the same manufacturers that their doctors would have likely used anyways. But direct specialty care, decreased ER visits, decreased urgent visits, and all of that goes to the bottom line for health insurance. So if we decrease your claims, health insurance could be easily, 50%, 60, 70% cheaper.
It's opening a door. What I've found for myself, once you open the door to understand what's possible and you get over it can't be that good, like it's too good to be true kind of a thing, and you do start having opportunities for encounters of different types, and you do see the benefit, and you don't question it anymore. You just understand, like, this is it for real. These benefits exist. These are actual costs. It's still just such a foreign concept, I find, to the majority of consumers who either, they're like, that really is too good to be true, or they're just having to pull themselves out of that insurance-based paradigm to begin with, of it doesn't make sense for the provider to not charge me a lot for that. So there's something wrong here. And I've kind of had to train myself to be like, no, like this is real. It's not too good to be true.
It's just that easy. It can be simple. Yeah.
It can be. I asked about, you mentioned there's an insurance product or plan that you've put together. Can you tell me how that like weaves into everything else you're doing?
The main goal of direct care is to fix healthcare. We would put it as we want to be the most trusted name in healthcare. When you go to a direct care doctor, you're getting a good product, good price. You're pushing through all the noise and the malaligned incentives. And part of that is the two biggest pieces of this are healthcare and health insurance, and they got to go together. So we did the best we could do to make a model that would decrease the cost of most care, but you're still going to have car accidents, cancers, heart attacks, and that's a good product. We're not anti-insurance, we're pro-efficiency. So as we got through this process and worked with employers and played all the different games we could play to try to keep insurance premiums low in combination with direct care, it just kept rising. And the big companies, for lots of understandable reasons, are slow to innovate towards direct care. Part of that's bad governance. I like to joke, government's not bad, they're just bad at it. And they don't know how to run a business or innovate or make something new either, right? And they're not risk takers. You're talking about an industry based on risk, so it moves very slow. We said, all right, if we've gotten through all these other value adds to the direct care model and direct specialty care, what's the next big hairy thing we can tackle? And right or wrong, we joke, there's this sign that says, we don't do this because it was easy, but because we thought it would be easy.
Oh, nice.
Or at least easier. Because the software side is very easy in a lot of ways. We said, look, it's at last year, the national average was $25,500 per family per year. This year, it's over $27,500. Probably next year, you're knocking on 30,000. If we take our oath, our Hippocratic oath seriously of do no harm, I think that means do no financial harm. And if families could save $1,000 a month on their health insurance, that would be really life-changing in a lot of ways for them, right? Nothing causes depression and anxiety and migraines like financial stress. So it's a game rigged against the patient, and the patient feels that way. So if we can go back and say, well, here's what we think the true cost of procedures are and insurance, and you don't need to insure meds and labs and most things, can we get that to a spot that, you can have your cake and eat it too? That you can have what we feel is really good insurance at a really good price and do whatever you want with the rest of the dollars. Because ultimately the goal should be to insure a lot more people at a much lower price, system-wide, nationwide, right? That's the goal. The goal isn't just to infinitely spend more money on insurance at the cost of anything else. But if you can have affordable insurance and affordable care and money to invest in schools or vacations or nutrition or anything else, then that's a better system. So that's what we're hoping to do. Ultimately, we would like to make healthcare less than free, which is a totally insane statement. And the best way I can describe that is that you get all the care you want and have money left over. In an interesting way, we'd love to see this happen with like credit card reward points. Right? Nobody really needs airline miles, but if your migraine medicine is $100 at the pharmacy, you can't spend enough money to buy that back with reward points. If wholesale and direct care is $3, that's incredibly achievable, right? And so that your normal shopping is getting you 4%, 5% cash back towards healthcare that's already 95% off. But again, I find this somewhat humorous is people say, this is too good to be true, right? My car drove me to work today, right? I have a supercomputer on my wrist. Those things are too good to be true. Direct care is just like really good algebra. Like it's not even calculus. It's just basic math. It shouldn't shock us that healthcare is affordable before we have self-driving cars and billionaires doing a space race. I think our expectations are so flipped.
I love it. Never thought of it that way before. That's so true, though. Last question for you. It's more of a personal level in terms of what gives you hope for the future of healthcare personally.
For me, it's a love story between family medicine and good business. I grew up in a small business and I run a small business with my family, both the clinic and our software and things like that. I see what good is the right type of business does for people. But also, I've always loved family medicine. And even when I was an undergrad, applying for med school, so like 2002, and then applying for residency in 2007, the big headlines were that family medicine is dying on the vine. It won't be around in 5 or 10 years. It's just always doom and gloom. And then that leads to our profession not being trusted because people just don't feel like it's looking out for them. And so this feels like, the best opportunity to fix a big problem. And I can see the fix. And so to say, look, more people getting more healthcare more often, faster, cheaper, easier, should sound a little crazy, but it's working. And it's helping doctors, it's avoiding suicide, it's improving their lives and patient lives. And for us, it's the reason to wake up every day. It's an exciting privilege.
Well, thanks for diving into this with us. That's a wrap for this episode. I want to thank you for giving us a lot to think about. And just on a lighter note, just thanks for everything you're doing to make healthcare more consumer-centered. And we'll continue to look forward to what's coming from what all you're doing out there in the industry.
So thank you very much. And thank you for your work.